Hey guys, I'm back. Grab your piece of paper and let's go. Welcome to MK's Medical Review Series. My name is Dr. Moses Kazevu. This is a series on my YouTube channel where we look at medical topics in depth. Today we're going to start a new series, community-based education or public health. We're going to start with the most important aspect, which is research proposal writing. I know this is going to bother a lot of students that have never done any research or any form of research writing in their life, and it may be confusing when you do it firsthand, but I will make this as simple and as practical as possible, such that at the end of this, you get a very, very good overview of what a research proposal is, how to draft your research proposal, and I will even teach you how to reference using Microsoft Word. Yes, you can actually reference using the Microsoft Word, both in-text referencing as well as putting your bibliography or your reference list or citation list at the end of your Word document. So please stay tuned and watch this video till the end. If you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe to the channel as we are on the road to 2K subscribers. Drop a like, drop a comment, show some support, share the video if you may, grab your piece of paper and let's go. So remember that most of the scientific findings and most of the knowledge that we actually know is obtained through research. We formulate certain questions that we ask ourselves, which we call hypothesis. And then we either carry out certain investigations to either approve or disprove of those hypotheses. So most of the new discoveries are actually as a result of research. Remember that this is going to be pertaining a systemic inquiry that is going to be involving data collection, documentation, analysis, and interpretation with the aim of discovering new knowledge. So there is something that's referred to as a scientific gap. A scientific gap is just simply an area in the scientific body or scientific research knowledge where there isn't that much information, or there could be some information, but it's not adequate enough. So you first have to identify the scientific gap. So the first part of your research is going to be drafting what is known as a research proposal. But before you actually draft the research proposal, you are advised to actually draft what is known as a concept paper. I will talk about what a concept paper is. It will help you now give you like a summary of what your research proposal is going to be and eventually what your research is all about. Think of a research proposal kind of like how you're proposing to a girl if you're a guy. You're pretty much going to be campaigning for yourself. Oh, I am this type of guy. I am nice. I have a nice smile. I have a nice voice. Yeah, please be in love with me. But anyways, let's keep this professional. So your research proposal writing is meant actually to be the stepping stone, because you're being introduced now to the element or the word of research, because research is where we get most of our information, most of the knowledge that we know, and it's very important. So what's the algorithm flow of a research? So the first thing that you're going to be doing is identifying an informational scientific gap. So you realize there is a topic that has not been researched on, or it may have been researched on, but the data that has been there is not substantial enough. And then, of course, you're going to draft your research proposal. Once you draft your research proposal, you're going to have to submit it to your supervisor. And then, of course, it'll be back and forth between you and your supervisor. Sometimes your supervisor may deny your topic, so you may have to come up with a new topic, or they may tell you that this has already been done. So be actually ready to face those things. So in this research algorithm, once we identify this scientific gap and we draft our research proposal and we submit it to the supervisor, of course, you will have a supervisor who's pretty much an expert in that field. Then once your supervisor has done all the necessary corrections and they are satisfied with your research proposal, then you can submit it to what is known as the Research Ethics Committee. So once you submit your final research proposal to the Research Ethics Committee, they're going to review it and they're going to give you feedback. So they may give you feedback of approving your research, and then you will be able to carry out your research, or they will give you some corrections that you have to make, such that you have to resubmit your research proposal until you make a copy that's approved by the research ethics, then you can actually carry out this research. So you have to obtain ethical approval before you actually carry out any form of research. Once you now obtain your ethical approval, then you are going to conduct your research, you're going to obtain your results. After which, once you obtain your results, what you're going to be drafting is what is known as a research report. So you're going to be writing predominantly two things. A research proposal, which is telling us how exactly you're going to carry out your research, what your research is about, where you're going to carry out your research, how you disseminate the information, and then when you actually do the research, you give us the findings of what you had gotten from your research and your conclusions. You discuss and see if your aims and objectives for your research were achieved. Then, of course, once you do this, then you disseminate the information, and this helps in filling the scientific gap. So this is how we're going to be fortifying our knowledge in the scientific community during a research or with more research. And we are actually urging more students to actually dive into research because we need more and more, especially in our continent and in our country. So how long should this actually be, the research proposal? So generally, research proposals for bachelor's and even master's level are a few pages long. So I could say if I'm saying a few pages long, I'm like 20 to 30 pages maximum. That's excluding the citations and the appendices. Then, of course, your research proposals for projects like PhDs, even when you want some funding for certain researchers, they are actually much longer than the ones that you are going to be doing at your school level. And they are far much more detailed than the ones we're going to be discussing. But this is mainly for those that are at bachelor's level and those that are being introduced to research. There will be some more lectures that will be put out on the different types of research designs that will now go into details in those kind of research designs, so that you have a much broader understanding at the end of the day when you're drafting your research. When you learn about research, even when you go to a higher level, you won't start without a background that is solid. So remember that the goal of your research is to clearly outline exactly what your research proposal is to clearly outline exactly what research that you're going to do is going to entail and what it's going to accomplish. And there are some research proposal guidelines in different communities and different universities that are pretty much going to be needing a word count. Now, this word count is not really necessary for the research. It's not really necessary for the research proposals that you're going to be writing at this level. Now, there are some study designs. You can think of these kind of like the purposes why we carry out certain researches. So predominantly three important research designs. So it could be an exploratory or an interpretive research, a descriptive research, or an explanatory research. So what's the difference between these three things? So the explorative research, here you're going to be investigating a research question that has not been previously studied in depth. Of course, these can be qualitative in nature, but they can also be quantitative. I'll explain later on what's the difference between qualitative researches and quantitative researches. So this is what's known as an exploratory or interpretive research. Let me give you an example. So your university dining hall is considering adding vegan versions of its meal to its daily menu, something it has never offered before. However, the university is hesitant to do so because of concerns that the items will not be sufficiently popular, leading to increased food waste, which is a possibility. So your university is eco-conscious and will not add the items if this will increase food waste, as there is also a cost associated with developing the recipes. The plan will only proceed if there is concrete proof that the vegan meals will be successful. So how exactly are we going to find this out? We want to carry out an exploratory type of research. So we're going to be now exploring, because no one has ever explored the research in this university to see if the students would take a vegan meals or they wouldn't take vegan meals. So the research that you would be carrying out would be an exploratory research, because you'll be diving now into details and finding out whether or not students are going to buy this or are going to partake of these meals when they are introduced to the university. So some examples of some questions that exploratory researchers can answer are, for example, what effect does using digital notebook have on the attention span of middle schoolers? What factors influence mental health in undergraduates? What outcomes are associated with authoritative parenting styles? In what ways does the presence of a non-native accent affect intelligibility? How can the use of grocery delivery services reduce food waste in single-person households? So this is just some different questions that this type of research can do, where someone hasn't really studied in depth of this area, and you really want to go into depth of this area. Now, the next research design is what is known as a descriptive research. So this is pretty much going to be describing a population, a situation, or a phenomenon. So here you're going to be answering the following questions. You're going to be answering what, you're going to be answering where, you're going to be answering when, and you're going to be answering how. So these are the questions. But in the descriptive research, we do not answer why, because you're just describing. When you're describing, it's just, think of it like this. If you're able to describe Dr. Kazevo, how would you describe him? Okay, fine, he's not so tall, not so short. He's very friendly. You're not explaining why I'm friendly. You're just describing what is there. You're just describing where I'm usually found. So the same thing is happening here in this descriptive type of researches, where you're just going to be describing these things and not really answering the why questions. And usually these are going to be quantitative in nature, but they can also be qualitative. Here's an example of descriptive questions. For example, how the Amsterdam housing market changed over the past 20 years. Do customers of company X prefer product X or product Y? What are the main genetic, behavioral, and morphological differences between Europe wild cats and domestic cats? What are the most popular online news sources among under 18s? How prevalent is disease A in population B? So that's more or less like a descriptive type of research. Then the last research design is more of an explanatory research. You can think of this now as explaining something that occurs when limited information is available. This is actually very different from an exploratory or an interpretive research. And remember that here, the design is actually used to investigate how and why a phenomenon takes place. Remember, in exploratory, we're exploring a subject that hasn't been studying in depth. Here, we're explaining now why something happens the way it does. So here is an example of an explanatory type of research. So you have been teaching statistics to undergraduate students during both the first and second semester for several years in a row. You analyze their final grades and you realize that the students who take your course in the first semester always obtain higher grades than students who take the same course in the second semester. You are interested in discovering what causes this pattern. So here you want to explain why the students that are in second semester are getting lower scores than the students that are taking the first semester. You're not really going into depth like in an exploratory type of research. Here are some examples, other examples of explanatory questions. Why do undergraduate students obtain higher average grades in first semester than second semester, which was the previous example? How does marital status affect labor market participation? Why do multilingual individuals show more risky behavior during business negotiations than monolingual individuals? How does a child's ability to delay immediate gratification predict success in life? Why are teens more likely to litter in a highly littered area than in a clean area? So you're explaining certain phenomena, certain behaviors, why things happen the way they are supposed to be. So those are the three predominant type of research designs, or the three purposes in which we're going to be carrying out research. Now, there are types of research methodologies that we can go into, and we will have separate lectures on quantitative researches, qualitative researches, and some mixed methods. There are predominantly three main types: quantitative, qualitative, and mixed methods. So here I'll just give you an overview because I'm giving you an introduction to research and how you're going to be doing research, so that this gives you the basis on where you can actually start your research proposal and your ideas and your concepts. So a quantitative research is just simply going to be collecting and analyzing numerical data. So this is data that can be converted to numbers and figures. So it's going to be used to find patterns, averages. We can use it to make predictions, even test causal relationships, and generalized results in a wider population. Here's some examples of quantitative research questions. What is the demographic makeup of Singapore in 2020? So you're going to be finding out how many females are there, how many 20-year-old males are there, so on and so forth. So you're going to find out numbers. How has the average temperature changed globally over the last century? You're also going to find out numbers. Does environmental population affect the prevalence of honeybees? Then does working from home increase productivity for people with long commutes? So these are just examples of quantitative, something that you can quantify. So it's something to do with numbers. Then there are some methods that you can use under quantitative research. There is what is referred to as a descriptive research, correlational research, experimental research, and a quasi-experimental research. We'll go into details of this when we cover quantitative research on their own. So remember that descriptive research, this is where you're going to be simply seeking an overall summary of your study variables. Then when you are talking about correlational research, you correlate, you find a relationship between your variables. Then in experimental, you are systematically examining whether there is a cause and effect relationship between your variables. So if you do not understand these at this point, don't worry, we will go into depth of this in another lecture on quantitative researches. Then of course, qualitative researches is going to be involving collecting and analyzing this non-numerical data. So things like text, things like video, things like audio, and of course, it's going to be gathering an in-depth insight into a problem and generating new ideas for the research. So here, that's where you're going to be getting views of an individual, descriptions of an individual's experiences and whatever it may be. So here are some examples of qualitative types of researches. How does social media shape body image in teenagers? So because each person will have their different opinion. How do children and adults interpret healthy eating in UK? What factors influence employee retention in a large organization? How is anxiety expressed around the world? How can teachers integrate social issues into science curriculums? Now, the rule of thumb is this. If you can quantify it in numbers and translate it into numbers, it's most likely quantitative. If you can't really quantify it in numbers, it's based on past experiences, it's based on opinions, then it's most likely qualitative. So some common qualitative approaches include a grounded theory, ethnographic approach, action research, phenomenological, this always gives me it's a tongue twister, research, narrative research, historical research, even case studies. These are just some common approaches that are used in qualitative type of researches. We will go into details of this when we look at qualitative research. This is just an overview to give you a stepping stone for you to start writing your research proposal. Then there are some mixed methods such as sequential design, sequential explanatory, sequential exploratory, sequential transformative, concurrent designs, and of course, concurrent triangulation. We'll go into details of those also in another separate lecture. So what are some of the things that you must do before drafting your research proposal? You must write what is known as a concept paper. This will give you an idea of what exactly you are achieving, or what you achieve. So you should answer the following questions: what, where, why, and how. So what simply means, what is your research about? What is a broad definition of your research issue? What problem are you going to tackle? Then where is the location where you're going to be carrying out your research? Where is it going to be done? Is it going to be done in Lusaka? Is it going to be done on the Copper Belt? Is it going to be done in Kabwe? Then why is pretty much a justification, an overview why you're doing the research. You're doing the research because no one else has done it. You have realized that there is a gap. For example, if you realize that a lot of students, medical students, have been killing themselves, especially at third year school, you would want to find out why have students been killing themselves. There may be some studies that may have been done previously, but depending on where you're going to be doing your study, it may be a pilot study or a new study that has never been done at your school. Then of course, how, meaning how you're going to be carrying out your research, your explanation of the research methodology. So your concept paper shouldn't be very long. It shouldn't exceed 2 pages. Of course, if you're using double spacing for the line spacing, and of course, you should share this concept paper with your potential supervisors or your lecturers or even your seniors, then they can advise you based on that, and then you can start drafting your research proposal. But make sure that your topic has been approved before you actually start your research proposal. The worst thing that you can ever do is do the research proposal, then realize that your topic has been taken by someone else or it has been done before, and you have to redo everything else. So you should make sure that your research topic has been approved before you actually even start writing your research. So what are some of the elements of the research proposal? This is where the meat of the discussion actually is. So you have your cover page. I will show you a sample. If you actually want a walkthrough into an example of a research, then please drop a like and drop a comment that you would love to have a walkthrough in one of the research proposals. Then I'll do a video where we do a walkthrough in one of the research proposals and actually analyze the research proposal. So So we want to do a cover page, which is going to have the title of the proposal, your name, obviously, your ID number for your school, your faculty, the caption of the degree for which the proposal is made. Then, of course, your name of your institute and its logo and the date. Then you go to your introduction where you cover the background and the rationale of your study, your aims and objectives, your research questions. The aims and objectives and research questions are almost similar. The aims are statements. The research questions, of course, are the statements that are changed into questions. Okay, so for example, if I'm aiming to investigate the prevalence, so my aim will be to investigate the prevalence of diarrheal disease among under 5 children at UTH during 2020. Then my question is, my research question would be, what is the prevalence of of diarrhea among under 5 children at UTH in 2020? So you kind of like switch the aims and make them into questions. Then there is a review of literature where you look at other sources that have done your research before. What were the findings that they found? How did they go about it? This will give you an idea of how you should also go about your research. Then, of course, there is a research design and methods, how you go about the research, ethical consideration, the plan that you intend to do, your work schedule and your budget. Then you look at your references and citations and appendices. I'll show you exactly how we can reference, because it's very easy, and you'll realize that referencing should actually be very easy when you're doing it with Microsoft Word. So starting with the cover page. So all the elements on your cover page should be in the center. They should be well centered. Okay, this is the standard. Then you should choose a very good title. What are the elements of a good title? The first thing is that your title should be clear. Okay, you should use keywords in your title such that when someone reads your title, they'll know exactly what your research is about. The title is like a first and second name. Immediately you say that, hi, I'm Moses Kazevu. They already know who it is. Okay, so your title should explain everything that is going on in the research. So a rule of thumb is your title shouldn't exceed 20 words. You should avoid phrases and words that are not going to enhance the clarity of your title. For example, a study. A study of what? Okay. Avoiding repetition and any unnecessary abbreviations. Don't write UTH, write University Teaching Hospital in full, because UTH could mean so many things. Avoid any ambiguity and be precise. For example, if someone is saying the social factors influencing the child intelligence, that would be a good thing to say, rather than factors influencing intelligence, because there are many factors that they could be. There are social factors, religious factors, they could even be genetic factors, environmental factors. What exactly are you talking about? So avoid ambiguity and be precise. If you're investigating, say social factors influencing intelligence. Then, of course, your title must bring out the scope and the key objective of your research. So you should have your site, your variables that you intend on examining, your target population, your date, and of course, the duration of the study. So here are examples of some research titles. For example, number 1, the prevalence of diarrhea among under 5 children at University Teaching Hospital, Lusaka, Zambia from January 2018 to December 2018, or you could have just even said in the year January 2018. So this already has what you're going to be investigating, which is the prevalence. It has the target population, children under the age of 5. Where exactly are you going to be carrying this out? At UTH. And when are you going to be carrying out this? During this year. Then, of course, the second title is a relationship between self-efficacy and academic achievement among residents in Lusaka compound, Zambia. Okay, so your target are the residents in Lusaka. The location is Lusaka compound in Zambia, of course, and you're trying to establish a relationship between self-efficacy and academic achievement. Then, of course, the third example of a title could be knowledge, attitude, and practices of self-medication among fifth-year medical students at Lusaka Apex Medical University. You could even add Zambia there at the end. Then the last is the effect of online learning on continuous assessment results among third-year medical students at Lusaka Apex Medical University in Zambia. So this is just some examples of some titles that actually give you an idea of what the research is actually going to be about. So take your time and actually think. Your title must be, or your research must be based on something that you're very interested in, that you have realized that there is a scientific gap or something that piques your interest, because you don't want to research on something that you're not interested in, because it's going to be hectic and it's going to be boring. It's going to be very frustrating for you to do. So here's an example of a cover page. Okay, I have modified some of the names on it so that, anyways, for purposes of privacy and all that. So notice how I have the university name here, Lusaka Apex Medical University, the logo of the school. By the way, I'm not paid by any institution to actually advertise or teach in any way. This is solely for just teaching purposes and for my channel and for the benefit of anyone and everyone that subscribes to the channel. So of course, this is from the School of Medicine, Public Health, or Community-Based Education. That's the course code over there. Then of course, this is a research proposal report, or you can just say a research proposal. So here's the title: Knowledge, Attitude, Practices of Self-Medication Among Fifth-Year Medical Students at Lusaka Apex Medical University. So this is a research proposal submitted to the Lusaka Apex Medical University as partial fulfillment for the Bachelor of Medicine and Surgery degree. So that's the degree that this person aims to get at the end of the research. So the student name there is Moses Kazevu. The student number is given over there. Of course, this isn't my student number, so don't go searching for it. Then, of course, the supervisors here, Dr. G. Piri, these are just hypothetical names, and Dr. E. Banda. So avoid saying supervisor 1, supervisor 2, or if you have more than one supervisor, avoid listing them. You can just write them in one line, like so. Or if you have a main supervisor and a co-supervisor, you can write it like this. And of course, notice how I have the date and the number there, a Roman numeral for the page number over there. So this is what a standard research proposal cover page should actually look like. So if it looks something that's away from this, then know that you're headed in the wrong direction. Then the next page that's going to be there is, of course, declarations. So there are some student declarations that, of course, you will print out and sign that, of course, this is your own original work and it has not been presented at any other institute or any other university for consideration of any certification. And, of course, this has been referenced and you acknowledge all the textbooks, all the sources that were used. And, of course, you used your Harvard system and in accordance with the anti-plagiarism regulations. So this declaration should be there. Then, of course, there should also be a supervisor declaration. That's also there, depending on how many supervisors that you have. Of course, I will go into details of this in the walkthrough if you want me to do a walkthrough of the research proposal. Then, of course, comes your table of contents. There is a way in which you can design your table of contents on your Microsoft Word. That's also another topic for another day. I will show you how to design your table of contents on your Microsoft Word. If you do want that video as well, you can also drop a comment in the section below so that we can learn together and I can teach you how to actually maximize your work and to work diligently. So this is a table of content that is going to be the next page on your research proposal. You should also add a list of abbreviations and acronyms. Here's an example of how you would put them like that. You see how everything is in order on the same line like that. Your work should be presentable. It should be on the same line and everything. It shouldn't be haphazard, in short. And have list all the abbreviations and all the acronyms that you intend to use in your research proposal so that you avoid any ambiguity. Any terms that need defining, the next page you should define any terms. Of course, the is an example here. And see how I have had some referencing over there. You should add some referencing, Harvard referencing. I'll show you exactly how to do that. Then, of course, after you've done that, that's your preliminaries to your research proposal. You now go into your introduction. So your introduction here should be very good. I think the introduction should be the last thing you should actually write in your research proposal. I know it's very strange, but your introduction should be the last thing you write. And the reason why I'm saying this is because you would have already gone through everything of your research and you have an idea of everything concerning your research. You come back and write your introduction. It will give you an idea of what the research is about and a good summary of your research. So this is going to be introducing your topic. You're going to tell us what your problem statement is, your questions that your research needs to address, and of course, it gives context to the research. You also give some general objectives, some specific objectives, as well as research questions. When you do the walkthrough in a research paper, then I will show you exactly how to do this. Then, of course, the next bit, which is the longest part or the most important part of your research proposal, is, of course, your literature review. So here, this is what's going to be introducing all the sources that you plan to use in your research, because you're not the first person who would have probably done that research. There are other people that have done similar researches in different places and gotten certain results. So you want to actually see how these people went about their studies, how they actually, what results they got, and what challenges they had, and how exactly they set out to get these results. Now, this is going to be only done by using certain landmark studies from books, from data, from articles online. So I advise you to use Google Scholar. This is supposed to be Scholar, not school. Google Scholar. So I just go to Google, then type Google Scholar. It will give you a search bar that looks like Google. Do not just take any article that you see online, because anyone can write about anything online. Anyone can publish anything. But usually Google Scholar or PubMed or anything that may be a journal site that is reputable, you can use those papers. And of course, the rule of thumb is you should use papers that were published within the last 10 years. If there's nothing that was published within the last 10 years, then you can use something that was published beyond that. So you should add some filters on your Google Scholar when you're doing your search. If you do not know how to do this, again, please just drop a comment in the section below and ask me, how exactly am I going to go to Google Scholar? Then of course I may do a YouTube short or just a short video to show you how to do this. And of course, a good start is to have about 15 articles that are related to whatever you are aiming to research. And in your literature review, you're going to give us an introduction again to your topic. Give us statistics of your topic, the previous things that were found by other researchers. Give us the statistics globally, then narrow it down to each and every different continent, then narrow it down to regions, then narrow it down to your country. Have there been any researches that have been done in your country? That's a good way in which you're going to be doing this. And of course, your literature review is going to be diving into collection of sources and choosing and explaining how you're going to be using them in your research. So you should avoid plagiarism. There's a very, very big thing about plagiarism where you just simply take someone's work and use it as your own without giving them any credit. So you should make sure you read through the articles and get an idea of what the researcher is going to be, what the researcher was doing, and publish and write your literature review in your own words. If you are the one that hasn't come up with that idea, make sure that you give credit wherever it's due. Avoid reporting everything in verbatim, meaning that getting everything word for word. If the authors say that, okay, blue color affects memory, then you even say that the author said blue color affects memory. Blue color affects memory, then you should be able to actually tell us that blue color affects memory. Okay, so avoid any plagiarisms. Then the next thing that you're going to be going to is your research design and methods. So here you're going to give us an introduction to your study design that you intend to use, your study site, your target population, your sample size. There is a way in which you can calculate the sample size based on the type of research that you're going to have. And of course, there is an inclusion and exclusion criteria. Which population do you intend to include? Which population do you intend to exclude from your research? And of course, your data collection techniques, your data analysis and presentation of your information, your ethical consideration, which research ethics committee do you intend to hand in your work, and of course, how you're going to disseminate your findings. Now, this is the most important bit here, because there is some in-text referencing that you have to do with Microsoft Word that I will teach you. There is another program known as Mendeley, but I will resort to using the inbuilt Word because Mendeley also has a certain procedure of which you have to follow, but I will do that in another video. So let me just come out from this presentation over here and actually switch to Microsoft Word. So here, okay, so I'll go back to home. So of course you would have opened, if you have this version of Microsoft Word, then this will be easier for you to follow. If you do not have this version, I think this should be version, Microsoft Professional Plus 2016, or just Microsoft 2016, or anything that's later than this would have the similar features to this. So when you open up this Microsoft Word, you will find yourself at this page over here. So let me just type something random. Let's say, okay, this YouTube channel is the best channel on the planet. It is run in an awesome way according to the YouTube policy guidelines. Okay, so suppose this is the statement that you got from someone's research. So Now, how exactly are we going to, there are two things that you really need to know here. There's what is known as in-text referencing and your reference list at the end. So here I want to teach you how to do in-text referencing. So let's say you want this, you got this from someone and you rephrased it and you want to actually reference this over here. So you put your cursor at the end there between the dot and the last word. Then you'll come here to where it says references. Notice how I have Mendeley here. You may not have Mendeley already installed here. So do not ignore this. Go to this section that says citations and bibliography. Click on this arrow that says styles. You see that then there are different styles, APA, Chicago. I want you to choose Harvard, because that's the referencing system that you're going to be using. So choose the Harvard referencing system. Then here you go to insert citation and you click on add new source. Okay, click on add new source. Then here the type of source, what are you using? So most likely you're going to be using journal articles. So you click on journal articles. What are the authors? The articles usually have authors. So there is a way in which you write these authors. So you first start off with your surname, let's say Kazevu. And then you put a comma, Moses, then you put a semicolon, then let's say Banda, John, another semicolon, Piri, Edward. Okay, so these are the authors that author the article. If it's a corporate organization, like for example, if it's an organization like WHO, you just simply come and type WHO here, or World Health Organization, if it's a corporate author. Okay, but these are individual authors. Then you click the title here. The title would be, let's say, YouTube policy regulations in 2022. Okay, so your journal name would be the name of the journal. Of course, this is, let's say, electronics special. The year in which this journal was released, let's say 2021. Then the pages that you used, page 89 to about 90. The volume that you used, this should be in Roman numerals. This is the 4th volume. And then, of course, the issue, it should be in numbers, 45th issue. Okay? So then you click OK. Immediately you click OK. You see how this is going to now add this citation over there, Kazevu et al. So this is the citation that has been added. Okay? Very easy. Now, suppose you multiple different articles stated this citation here and you want to add multiple articles. So you first add the first citation over there. Then again, you click on the citation and you come again to say add source. So if we're quoting another article and say this one was done by Loveness Banda, okay, and Zulu Helen, and for example Jonas, I don't know if that's how you spell Jonas, but anyways, Jonas Piri. Then of course this is also done from Perks of YouTube. Perks of YouTube. That was the name of the article. The journal also was Electronics Limited. That's the name of the journal. Then the year was in 2020. The pages was 56 to about 70. Then of course the issue was the second issue. Then, the volume was the second volume, and then the issue was the 4th. Okay. Once you click OK, it will simply add to this area where you want it to add. Now, suppose you want to use another, or you want to add another citation at a different line. You just simply click here. If you have already entered the journal article, you can just simply come here to insert citation and select them. They will be listed here. Then you select maybe Loveness there, and then it will add Loveness over there. Now, if you have made a mistake and you realize that you have made a mistake on the spelling of a name, you can just simply come to Manage Sources over here. You click on the one that you think you have made a mistake on, then you click on Edit. Then if this was Banda instead of Piri, you simply change that to Banda. It will ask you if you want to update the changes in the master document. Just click yes. Then it will update the changes in the master document over there. That's how you do the in-text referencing. Now you reach the end of your research and where you want to add your reference list. So you can just simply type there references, or if you want, it can actually automatically do it for you. So you just click here, bibliography. You can choose whether you want a bibliography, references, or works cited. So references over there. Then it will simply add the references for you. If you add more references to your text, let's say we add another reference. Let's say I'm just going to do this very quickly. We add another reference over here, and let's say this lecture was sponsored by WHO. Then let's say we add another reference here, we add there. Okay. And of course, when we come here, we see that the third reference that we've added has not been updated here. So you simply right click on this and click on update field. Then it will add the third reference. So that's how easy referencing is, in-text referencing, and then as well as adding the bibliography at the end. That will help you in your Microsoft Word. I hope that really helps. I'll do another video of how you can use Mendeley to actually use a referencing system, but this is the inbuilt feature of Microsoft Word. So I hope that really helped. So let's get back now to our lecture over there. Then of course the next bit will be your appendices. So in the appendix you can add the data collection tool that you are using. You should add your consent form. This is what the consent form is going to look like. So you put your title there, your principal researchers, and of course explaining what your research is about, and explaining that the person can actually pull out of the research whenever they want. There will be some confidentiality that's going to be there, and of course you will have some ethical clearing, and you won't use any real names. So this is just simply to assure the patient that their name will not be included in the research in any way. Then of course here's a draft of the work plan proposal. So you have the proposal development and completion between August and September, ethical approval between September and October, data collection, data analysis, and report writing in the month of November. Then of course the final report submission in December. So this is a research that was done over a course of 5 months in the year 2019. Then of course here's the budget. Of course what you need: the paper, the pen, the printing, the photocopying, transport, and any miscellaneous causes or miscellaneous things, and of course your grant total. So again, this will be part of the walk view and the walk through of the research paper. So if you do really want that, just hit me up and comment in the section below. It helps the channel. It also helps you out. Then of course some tips before we end. Remember that the margin and lining, spacing, and paragraphing should be about 1 inch margin all around, double spacing, and of course block paragraphing, no indenting. Okay, so you should justify your work. Then of course there is a way in which you number the pages using the Roman numbers for the preliminary pages. Then of course for the main content you use Arabic numbers 1, 2, 3. I'll show you how to do this in the walkthrough. Then of course all the pages shall appear in the center of the lower margin of the page. You should use a 12 size or Times New Romans on an A4 page. Then of course the major headings should be centered in boldface. They should follow the Harvard heading levels. Then of course the headings should not exceed the 3rd level. You shouldn't have 3 levels of headings. Then of course tables should be labeled accordingly to the chapters using Arabic Roman numerals at the top, and then of course the source at the bottom, where you got that image, where you got that chart, where you got that table. Then of course use gender sensitive language, avoid any jargon, avoid any political statements, avoid any colloquial language. Then avoid things like don't, won't. You should say you do not, will not. Do not use those abbreviated words. And of course the length should, like I said, about 20 to 30 pages if you want a very good research proposal, and excluding the appendices. And then of course the complete proposal must be duly signed by the student and the supervisor, and the candidate should then submit 4 spiral bound copies for signed of the signed proposal through the head of department for consideration to conduct the research. So this should be handed into the ethics committee. So I hope this actually has helped shed some light on the research and as well as the referencing system. I know referencing is a headache for most of the students. If it did, please drop a like, drop a comment, and also share this to someone who is struggling with the research and what exactly to expect and how to go about it. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification icon to be receiving notifications of such videos every time I post. Drop a comment, drop a like. To Zambia and beyond, my name is Dr. Moses Kazim.